All right, we are live. Vivek, thank you so much for making some time to connect with me. For those of you who don't know, Vivek is the CEO and founder of Verrific. Vivek is a longtime veteran in the dental space in general. Spent a lot of time, working around insurance and negotiating insurances for offices. And I believe you sold your company and then you got into insurance verification. Insurance verification is such a complex. Usually, people completely misunderstand what's possible to get out of insurance verification. But would love to have you just briefly introduce Verific, and just for us to kind of set the tone, just to talk about the state of the industry in terms of like insurance verification, what you can expect. We hear all the time about these new AI products doing insurance verification, talk about the limitations. And then, of course, we're going to finally announce and introduce our integration and provide a quick demo of it.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, from a landscape perspective, right? Like I think it's almost still where it was, when I first got into dentistry, right? Like the insurance verification space was very, very fragmented, right? And people don't realize is that the way it's even difficult in my demos to explain the problem well enough, right? Because
Sure.
in order for people to understand the solution, they have to understand the scope of the problem. There are 200 something pairs, right? People think of Delta Dental, but it's actually 39 different Delta Dentals that are independent companies. Blue Cross Blue Shield, it's a licensing company. There's dozens and dozens of Blue Crosses, right? I mean, it's these conglomerates. Like New York has four different Blue Crosses, right? And
Right.
each of these are independent insurance payers. Shouldn't even call them insurance. But what they have decided is they decide what data to provide and in what structure, right? And so the gamut of what we get and what's missing is like wild. And it's really, you have to be extremely, extremely experienced and trained well to even know what is missing because it's like you don't know what you don't know, right? So, and I use this example of MetLife very often. Great pair, okay? If you think about it, there are four different ways that you can get the data that you need, right? One of them is just called EDI. It's software. Our software makes a connection to their software, and we get data in this right, not cool format. Okay. The second is just portals. You just log into the portal and you find the data. Third is fax backs, and the fourth is you make a phone call, right? So the first one is called EDI. Now, MetLife has really, really good EDI data, very reliable. Make a connection, you get a lot of data. Okay. Now, again, format is all weird, but you get a lot of data. MetLife also has a really good portal called meddental.com. You go in there and you'll get tons of information. In fact, one of the rare few that if you're in network will tell you what fees you'll get paid and all that stuff. Okay. But if you've got a new patient coming from MetLife, this is unfortunate reality of all offices right now. You still have to make a phone call. And there is really no automation software that's going to help you because MetLife does not provide you complete history. So, in fact, it's so sparse that it does not even provide you the last two visits. So you can't even tell when the last two exams were done. So think about it. We're in August. If you had a new patient coming in from MetLife, right? And you saw that, this patient had an exam, in July, right? Now, most offices just believe that, oh, okay, we can now do a second exam. Let's say it's a limited, right? But because MetLife does not provide even the second visit, they may have had another exam in January, right? And everything gets denied, etc. Right? It doesn't provide you any history of SRPs. All this data, you have to make a phone call.
Right.
And this is one of the better pairs, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
So I think just to summarize, today there's a lot of disparate data. It's really difficult to get a complete breakdown. Sometimes you get some of the data from software from the payer portal, and sometimes you have to call in.
right.
And no, like there's just limitations in the industry. So a lot of times when a company says, "Oh, and we have an insurance verification product," most of the time it's not perfect. It's not comprehensive. And Verific has done I think this is a really good opportunity to introduce Verific and how you guys have attacked this problem in a different way and how you guys solve some of those challenges.
Yeah, so in our case, there's three different, ways that we source the data. But the number one thing that kind of makes Verific very unique is like, in the portal, you just customize your breakdown, right? Like you say, I want this. I want to always know about missing tooth.
And this is
And
part of the onboarding process, right? So when
right,
someone comes to you guys, they onboard. You guys work with them on creating like here's a custom field set of fields that we can verify for you.
that's right. Right. And we walk them through it and they can change at any time, right? As they add or subtract, services and et cetera, right? But the first thing is that you basically say, okay, this is what we need. And the reason why that's important is because most of the other products that are out there will just give you everything that they can get because it's so much easier, right? You make a connection, you get all the data, right? They would standardize the few basic elements like annual max, et cetera, to show here it is. And then the rest of that is just a dump of all the data that you get, and then you can search for it, right? Now, it doesn't help that much more because you can just go to the portals and do the same thing, right? In fact, sometimes going to the portals is easier, right? The second source of data for us is that there are certain carriers that have very poor EDI data, but
Sure.
have really good portals, right? So what ends up happening is that most offices use some sort of an automation product, and these particular pair, like a Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois, which goes through Dental Networks of America, it gives very, very little information from the EDI, but it has a really good portal, and you go to the portal and get that information, right? So what we've done is for those payers, we've just created, we call this Portal AI, because these are true AI agents that are just logging in, handling all the 2FA code. It's all built into the application and scraping the data and fetching it. And again, also standardizing it. So really, really
I think
challenging.
that's a very important point, right? So and this is something that is really interesting. Every payer and every data source has the data in a completely different format. And one of the things that you guys do that's really unique is you take the data from the different like original raw data and you standardize it and spit it out in a way that's very usable, right? And that's actually what powers our integration because you've done the standardization on your end. It makes it so that we could take all these individual data sets that all come in a different format. You're pulling them using, AI agents, plugging into the portals, getting them, standardizing them, giving it to us, and then we're able to the way we've done our integration is we can actually write the benefits into our system the way our system calculates and plans out treatment plans. And I think that's really what's super exciting about this partnership that we're launching.
Yeah, for sure. And there was always, the data standardization is a very, very challenging problem, right? I mean, we spent 3.5 years with full-time developers just working on the problem across different pairs, right? And what we saw is that most of the folks that say it's standardized, some of it is standardized, the rest of that, it's like, you'll just get an English sentence like prior extractions are not covered, right? Now,
Right.
somebody who's experienced realizes that means there's a missing tooth clause, right? But people who don't, and there's a lot of them, right? They don't know what this means. So what we do is when we standardize in our form, it says missing tooth clause, yes or no. That's the field. And it doesn't matter how, 40, 50 different ways that the pairs provide that information to us. The AI understands it and standardize it because it's a binary yes or
Yep.
no, and it'll
Yeah,
make it that way, right?
exactly.
But the other third unique part of this that is really the data that we can get and we have, which is more than pretty much anybody else, is because of this whole crowdsourcing feature that we have, right? Like we also operate as an outsourcing company, which means, clients can say, hey, the software does not have enough data that I need. I've got these 20 things that I'm still missing, right? And it'll happen for a variety of reasons. I'd like a human being to call and get that, right? And so
Right.
we have clients that will basically outsource it, and then we have a team of about 90 something full-time human beings that make a phone call and collect the data. But what we've done from the beginning is all of that data in the standardized format goes into our platform. So it's all additive, so the data just keeps building. And we stand right now at a few 100,000 plans already in the system.
Incredible.
So the all in the same format, which means when our automatic verification happens, it also benefits from all the phone calls that we've made, and it collates all of that data and then it ships it out, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. And in a truly hybrid approach. So you guys have the tech, you're using AI to standardize, and you've also recognized that sometimes you do need a human, and humans are making the or closing the gap and then updating everything. So this is actually part of the reason we chose to partner with you guys because you have such a comprehensive approach. I think on that note, let's just show everyone how the integration works. Um, And was there anything else you think we should add or?
No, I mean, the only comment I would make on the data standardization is that I remember when we first started the project between, you and me, and we were just doing it in the POC state, and you were just kind of feeling us out. And then we sent you a few samples, and I think it was Kyle or someone else. One of the things that he made a statement and said, we've tried a lot of other, integration partners who've said that they've standardized data. You are the only one that has genuinely standardized data, right? And we spent a lot of time with that, right?
100%. And we have different integrations with, some of the clearinghouses and things like that, but the data is disparate, it's inconsistent, it's definitely not standardized. It doesn't write back the same way that our integration works. So this is by far the best I've seen, and part of the reason we're just so excited to work with this. I've been using this in one of my offices for several months now, and my team heavily depends on this. And I'm just super excited to bring this to the market. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I have two specific things I wanted to show. One is we've done like in preparation for this launch. Or let me just share my screen real quick and then um, here we go. So, in preparation for this launch, one of the things that we did was we created a more simplified view for managing insurance benefits. So, we have a very intricate benefit template system where you can track downgrades and missing tooth clauses and waiting periods and things like that. But I would say 90% of the time, offices want to have like some sort of standardized breakdown. And so we've built this benefit configuration screen where you can essentially customize what you're typically trying to pull and get. And this would correlate to how you guys onboard a customer. And you can, edit what fields you want, what codes, and even the colors. We still have the more advanced view, which is the more intricate benefit template system. So, for example, you could say, hey, for restorative, there is a frequency limitation or a exclusion or whatever it is, and you can keep track of all those unique situations. But having the more simplified view does make it a lot easier for our offices. And then I'm going to pull this up over here and just kind of walk everyone through. So essentially, when you enter in an insurance policy, you can hit check eligibility. For example, Dental Exchange is one of the clearinghouses we plug into for that. But when you have Verific turned on, you're able to hit the Verific button. It's going to check eligibility in real time. It shows you the two different plan details that you can get. So you can get a benefit breakdown for like an in-network or out-of-network. And when you click through here, you're actually able to take a look and see all of the different benefits. So this is, for example, what we get back, and you can see, for example, what exists, what doesn't exist. So, for example, there's a maximum here that's unlimited. There, it shows you what has changed. You're actually able to get more information based on how accurate the data is. So, for example, this little I button shows us that this has been verified 1 out of 3 times, and I know that you guys have a data quality score. So the more it gets verified, that score continues to go up. And then you can just quickly import all of the benefits, and it will update and write everything right into our format. And that's the beauty of having everything standardized. And so it's seamless, it's easy to use, it's based on real time, and then it just updates the patient chart ready to go for calculating a treatment plan estimate.
I feel like giving a round of applause over here, to be quite honest. It's a great integration, and it feels like this is like one of those moments in the industry, right? It's like, you know, something that people have been waiting forever.
I feel like this is one of the biggest pain points offices experience. Front office staff are trying to bridge this gap, and this is definitely a step in the right direction. So I think that's kind of all we wanted to showcase. We're super excited to launch this. Customers that are already on board with the dental app, they could just reach out to us, and we will easily get you connected um, to Vivek and his team. And in general, if you're not on the dental app, you should still absolutely check out Verrific. They're doing incredible things, and I'm super excited to work with you.
Same here, man. Same here. Thank
Thank you,
you.
Vivek.